better jokes than he. I'm a gastroenterologist. As I say, gastroenterology prepared me very well for Washington, D.C. Where Rand Paul does bring new ideas, a new spirit, and a new vigor to our cause. So, Senator Paul, Dr. Paul, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know about you, but I think I'd rather talk about the eyes than the other end. Now, I heard I was coming to Louisiana. I heard Jeff Landry was going to be the MC, and I was like, what language does he speak? I said, is that New Iberian? I'm going to need a translator. But I'm excited to be here today, and I'm excited to endorse your next senator, Bill Cassidy. But I want to be honest with you, I had a tough decision. I met both candidates. I met Rob Maness and I met Bill Cassidy early on, and I wanted to get involved, and I liked them both.
Yeah.
So I had a tough decision, and I ended up not being able to make a decision.
That's right.
But I met Rob Maness. I heard about his military record. I heard that he grew up in a military family and traveled around. I thought of my wife. Her dad was an enlisted man. She lived all over the country and all over the world. And think about how our military soldiers pick up and move. Every 6 months or every year or two, they're going to someplace else, all to defend our country. And it moves me to think about those who serve our country. And I had a soft spot for that. And then I read his platform. And Colonel Maness said, you know what? My kids are fighting for the country. I fought for the country. But we never go to war unless Congress votes on it. But I met Bill Cassidy. I liked him immediately also. He's a doctor. He also, I believe, believes strongly and personally that we are our brother's keeper, that we have a responsibility to our fellow man. I read about him starting a community center in Baton Rouge to take care of the poor. I read about him starting a vaccine program that vaccinated 36,000 kids. I read about after Katrina how he opened a medical clinic in an abandoned Kmart. You all remember what it was like. I'm sure many people in the room helped people. Even all the way up in North Carolina. I have a friend from medical school. They had a family from New Orleans for a year in their house. I think the underreported story, though, of healthcare or Katrina or what have you, the underreported story of our country is how gracious and humanitarian we are and how noble the things are that we do. Make no mistake about it. This election was a repudiation of the president and his policies. The president says things that are so foreign to me, I can't even comprehend them. He says, you didn't build that. Hillary Clinton then stands up last week and says businesses don't create jobs. How could we even consider electing these people? It's crazy. But people ask me, they say, what's the worst thing the president has done? Is it Obamacare? I say, well, it's a long list, but that's pretty bad. And I say, there can't be anything probably more antithetical to American freedom than taking away your choice to choose which doctor you go to. But in the end, I don't think it was Obamacare or is Obamacare, because he's still doing it. It's the trampling of the Constitution. A professor recently wrote and he said it's the collapse of the separation of powers. We were supposed to have 3 co-equal branches that would be ambitious and that would fight tenaciously to protect their turf, and as a consequence, no one branch would grow too strong. It was an incredible idea. It was an idea partly borrowed from Montesquieu, who wrote, and he was one of the French philosophers that our founders liked. He wrote that when the executive grabs up the power to legislate, when the executive legislates, a form of tyranny will ensue. That's what we face now. It's not just Obamacare. It's letting the president run lawless over our Constitution, and I will oppose it. You can have a variety of opinions over how we fix immigration, and something has to be done. It's a huge mess. With 50,000 kids on the border, something has to be done. And you can debate over what we should do, but there should be absolutely no debate. The president cannot act on his own. He does not have the authority. And I'll give some post-electoral advice to the Democrats. You know how they could have possibly had a chance in this election? Why didn't they at least try to fix Obamacare? Now, I'd repeal the whole damn thing. But why didn't they even acknowledge how many of us were unhappy about our choice being taken away? 3 months after the vote on Obamacare, after Mary Landrieu was the deciding vote to pass Obamacare, she was given a second chance. Senator Enzi from Wyoming, a good Republican, introduced an amendment and said, let's at least try to fix the part of Obamacare that takes away your choice of doctor. Let's try to let people continue to have the doctor they like. And you know how Mary Landrieu voted on that? Just like all the other Democrats with the president. It amazes me. They had a chance to try to fix the worst part of it, and they still voted no when given a second chance. The thing is that when Mary Landrieu comes home, she wants to tell you she's one thing, but in Washington, she's completely the opposite. Not only does she vote with the president, it's like, who will stand up? Who will stand up and say to the president, you're acting illegally, unconstitutionally? No, she's a rubber stamp, and it's time to bring her home. To me, it's always about the rule of law. The rule of law is what has allowed us to be the richest and most humanitarian nation. Where does most capital come into our country? Because you have a mortgage and a piece of paper, but we trust that the government's going to protect that. No one can steal your house. No one can steal your car without repercussions. But that has allowed a great amount of capital, but it's the rule of law. The rule of law isn't something empty. It's what your civilization's based on. It's based on 800 years of tradition from the Magna Carta on down. That tradition we can't give up. That tradition we have to steadfastly oppose. And I believe Bill Cassidy will defend the Constitution. So as you go to the polls and you get your neighbors to go to the polls, you remember that it's not just about Obamacare. It's not just about being a Democrat or Republican. Really, party labels aren't so important in this. It's about defending our heritage. It's about defending the Constitution and people who will stand up regardless of party and do what's right. I think Bill Cassidy will. Go out and elect him. Thank you.